Stick with me on this one. You got to trust me. Coming up, it's an episode that's going to raise a few eyebrows for sure. In honor of Valentine's Day, I'm counting down the top 10 love songs you shouldn't be ashamed to love. Or maybe we should say it's a countdown of the songs that we hate to love. We secretly do. I'm not going to be too cool for school on this one, but stay with me because there's some phenomenal stories here. You can call them guilty pleasures, whatever you want, but you're going to like this, including the story behind one of the most iconic music scenes in 80s cinema history. And it almost never happened. This is a story that hasn't been told, actually. The lead actor was furious on this scene because he thought he was going to come off looking like a wuss, and he was so annoyed doing this scene. The director thought he wouldn't be able to use any of the takes. But the pissed off look in this actor's eyes actually made the scene pop culture gold. And then there's a group that released a massive bilingual hit despite the fact that not a single member actually spoke the language. So they had to be coached phonetically, word by word in the studio on how to sing the song. And then they had to frantically learn the language so that on tour they wouldn't be exposed as frauds. We've also got the power ballad for the most hated band in the world that's actually a lot better than you remember. Forget the internet mob. These songs are worth it. We're going to do it. Hey, music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. Make sure to subscribe below so you never miss out. And make sure to get the Vintage Years Collection shirt any year. Oh, there's so many great years here. All right, let's get right into it. Coming in at number 10, it's the rocker known as the Groover from Vancouver, Canada's own Bryan Adams. And this was one of the last 3 major movie soundtrack songs for Bryan Adams. Now, in 1991, he recorded the number 1 hit, Everything I Do It For You, for Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. Then in 1993, he teamed up with Rod Stewart and Sting on another number 1 hit, the Three Musketeers song, All for Love. Make it all for one and all for love. Then he did a third movie song, and that one hit number 1 as well. But before he did it, the music producer on it, or the person over the music, was not convinced he could do it. He said, I don't want to get Bryan Adams. His power ballad type stuff is straight dog shit. That's what they said. Let me tell you the story. And some might actually agree with that assessment. The song is Have You Ever Really Loved a Woman, featured in Don Juan DeMarco, starring Johnny Depp and Marlon Brando. You really love a woman. And not surprisingly, after scoring 2 number 1 singles with producer Mutt Lange and songwriter Michael Kamen, Adams was ready to make it 3 in a row. Actually, Bryan called Kamen and asked what he was working on. Kamen said he was scoring kind of an odd film. It's not Robin Hood, it's not Kevin Costner, it's not even the Three Musketeers, but it's a great film about love, and it's a sweet story and a fabulous fantasy, and we could come up with something really great. And so Bryan said, all right, I'm in. But get this, when Michael Kamen pitched Bryan Adams to the film's music supervisor, a lady named Dawn Solar, she wanted nothing to do with the Canadian rocker. She called the standard Bryan Adams power ballad formula straight dog shit, like I was saying. Johnny Depp, he was sort of an alternative character at this time. This is before Pirates. And Dawn was determined to use a track by Tori Amos or Michael Stipe, REM. But she couldn't get the film to either of them. So her plan was to write a new song and shoehorn that into the movie somewhere. But it wasn't going to be Bryan Adams over her dead body. Kamen protested to New Line Cinema founder Bob Shea, though, and convinced him to give Bryan a shot. Said Kamen, and I quote, there's a little dance the father and mother do when they first meet, and it's a wonderful scene, and I came up with a theme for them to dance to, sort of Mexican folk tune, and that became the melody of the chorus of Have You Ever Really Loved a Woman? Have you ever really ever loved a woman? Now, in the meantime, Bryan Adams had written a little something himself. When he and Mutt Lange visited Michael Kamen in LA, Adams suggested tying 2 songs together. The result was, in Kamen's words, enough to make women melt. Let her hold you till you know how she needs to. When director Jeremy Levin heard the song, he thought it was fantastic, and he said, I'll kill somebody if they don't want to put anything but this song in my movie. So when Have You Ever Really Loved a Woman was released, it became Bryan Adams' 3rd straight number 1 on the Hot 100. And his 4th number 1 overall. It's funny that 3 of his 4 number 1s are all movie songs. All right, in at number 9, I've got Starship with Nothing's Gonna Stop Us Now, written by the songwriting team of Diane Warren and Albert Hammond. Looking in your eyes, I see a paradise. Nothing's Gonna Stop Us Now was the third chart-topping single for Starship after We Built the City and Sarah. And sticking with a theme of movie hits, Nothing's Gonna Stop Us Now, that was featured in the 1987 film Mannequin starring Andrew McCarthy and Kim Cattrall. It's a cheesy 80s film that I caught a few years ago after many years of not seeing it. It's good. Joel Seal, the head of music for Warner Brothers, contacted the pair and sent them copies of the script. Diane Warren and their co-writer Albert Hammond said, Diane, we liked it. We wanted to write an up-tempo positive song for it, and only took them about a day to do so. Now, the song wasn't written with anyone in mind at the time, but two duos were being considered. John Parr, he had the hit with Man in Motion, St. Elmo's Fire, and Laura Branigan. And then there's Patti LaBelle and then Michael McDonald. But someone proposed Grace Slick and Mickey Thomas, Starship, so arrangements were made. But the band was on tour, so industry great Narada Michael Walden was brought on to get things rolling. Narada hired on some musicians he'd used while recording with Whitney Houston and Aretha Franklin, and when Starship's tour finished, Grace and Mickey laid down vocal tracks. Now, the reason it became such a smash is actually because the two of them swapped parts in the middle. Actually, Narada had Mickey Thomas sing the female part and Grace sing the lower male part. And it really did make the song really unique. Nothing's Gonna Stop Us Now was a smash. And, when a song hit #1 in 1987, at nearly 50 years of age, Grace Slick became the oldest female artist to top the charts. Here's the thing. Grace Slick hated the song, and she hated being a part of Starship. She's called this period her sellout period of her career. The song, along with Starship's others, felt like a pair of golden handcuffs. We built the city and such, forced her into a band that she didn't respect. But Grace didn't stay for much longer. She actually left in '88. However, not everyone felt that way about Nothing's Gonna Stop Us Now. Here's what Mickey and Narada said about the song.
So I thought, something about the song, I said, it's kind of cool, it's kind of got a little bit of an R&B flavor, and could be a great vehicle for Grace and me, a duet, trade-off thing. But I said, I think it's only going to work if there's got to be one guy that can produce this single. And the record company said, who's that? I said, Narada Michael Walden. Because I knew he was in the Bay Area. He was in Marin County.
Great Whitney Houston.
Just finished Whitney and Aretha. And he was really hot.
Oh, yeah.
Time. So I said, he's got to do it. And they said, well, this may not be up his alley or his taste, I said, well, let's run it by him.
Electronic drums, where I could dial in the sounds I wanted, but it's all played on pads. So I'm able to get the sound that I want, exactly, big, new at that time. All that was new sounding.
Oh, yeah.
See what I'm saying? Big, monstrous. That's the magic. You know what I'm saying to you?
Oh my God.
You know what I'm saying to you?
You know what I'm saying?
Professor of rock and roll. But I had put it together where I wanted Grace to sing Mickey's low part, and I had it backwards at first. I had Grace doing the other, how do I say it? Grace was doing the low part, and Mickey was doing the high. But when I got Grace Ends doing the low part, it wasn't resonating in her voice. So I made an executive decision. I said, switch it. Grace, do Mickey's verse. And when she did that, it came to life.
All right, coming in at #8, I've got a song that is so bad, it's good. Talking about Color Me Bad with I Adore Mi Amore.
Dream on, dream away.
Comprised of Bryan Adams, Kevin Thornton, Mark Caldron, and Sam Waters, Color Me Bad formed in '85 in Oklahoma City. The R&B group had a killer run of hits over just a couple of years in the early '90s. 2 big #1s, a #2, and 6 more that broke into the top 25. CMB invented the term hip-hop doo-wop to describe their sound, fusing 4-part pop soul harmonies with hip-hop. Songs like I Wanna Sex You Up, All for Love, and I Adore Mi Amore became their biggest claims to fame, if you don't count that cameo they had on that 1992 episode of Beverly Hills 90210.
Donna, these are my friends, Kevin, Mark, Brian, and Sam.
But really, for a hot minute, Color Me Bad was huge on the airwaves with their debut LP, CMB. Then they just disappeared. They put out a couple more albums, but they just didn't hit the same. Those 3 songs, though, I Wanna Sex You Up, I Adore Mi Amore, and All for Love, are songs that we all secretly love, but we will never admit.
I adore.
Now, Sam Waters said I Adore Mi Amore was the first song they wrote together. He said, right before I wrote I Adore Mi Amore, we attended the ASCAP R&B Awards with Ronald Bell from Kool and the Gang, and we found ourselves standing next to legends, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. Of course, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis did all the stuff for Janet Jackson, amongst other things. Now, Terry Lewis noticed that one of the guys in our group was Mexican, and he told us, your group is like the United Nations. You guys have every race of people in your group. We all just started laughing because Terry suggested they record a Spanish version of one of their songs. The guys sort of laughed it off at first, like I say. In 1991, so-called Spanglish pop was a commercial risk in the U.S. The guys worried that Spanglish lyrics might alienate their target R&B and pop audiences. But they came around and realized that it was a pretty good idea. So they recorded an English and Spanish version of I Adore Mi Amore for the album. But the thing is, no one in the band actually spoke Spanish. So when they were in the studio, they had to be coached phonetically to get the pronunciation just right. Literally learning to pronounce the words without fully understanding the meaning behind them. But it worked. I Adore Mi Amore peaked at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart and #1 on the Billboard R&B singles chart.
I love the girl of my dreams, and I will never.
But the real drama began after I Adore Mi Amore became a massive international hit. Now, Face was performing for huge crowds, including a significant Latin fan base. They had to quickly embark on a crash course learning basic Spanish phrases so they wouldn't look like frauds while they were singing on tour.
Y este sueño contigo será realidad.
You have to admit, whenever you hear, I adore, you're in. All right. So at #7, I've got the most hated band of all time. That's for sure. But here's the thing. As many hilarious memes have pointed out recently, we may act like we hate these guys, but secretly we kind of like them. Talking about Nickelback with Far Away. In fact, the two bands that are considered to be the worst bands of the last 25 years, Creed and Nickelback, have made a huge renaissance in pop culture. Gen Z, like my kids, I've got a teenage son, and he loves them, and he's got really great taste in music. They're making this big impact right now. It's pretty cool. I love that meme. He's like, turn that crap off. And then he's like singing every line. Come on. Nickelback, there's a couple of songs where you're kind of like, I know I shouldn't like this, but turn that shit off. All right, so Nickelback was formed in 1995. They began as an indie metal band in Vancouver before breaking into the mainstream in 2000. Their third studio album, Silver Side Up, was released on September 11, 2001. It debuted at #2 in the US and #1 in Canada. Fueled by the success of their #1 single, How You Remind Me, the album went 6 times platinum. Nickelback followed that up with their 3 times platinum offering, The Long Road, in 2003, and their Diamond LP, All the Right Reasons, in 2005. All the Right Reasons boasts of 5 top 20 hits, including the #2 Photograph, the #6 Rockstar, and the #8 Far Away. And on the strength of those big 3 hits, that album has sold almost 15 million copies worldwide. Now, Far Away is the song that frontman Chad Kroeger calls Nickelback's only real love song. And I'm going to publicly admit, for the first time in my life, it's a Nickelback song that's decent. Actually, I'm breaking the Nickelback hate here. Chad Kroeger is actually one of the nicest guys in the business. They tour their ass off. I think they get too much hate. So in saying that Far Away was the band's only love song, Chad noted that some of the others might be about love, but not strictly about being in love. Far Away was written when the band was spending most of their time physically distanced from their families on tour. But even though it kind of captured their situation, most of the band hated it because they thought it made them sound really soft. Now, the music video actually added another layer of touchy-feely drama to this thing by centering on a forest firefighter who's presumably killed in a massive blaze, only to emerge at the end to reunite with his grieving partner. Sorry I gave it away there. The visual narrative turned the track into a staple tribute for first responders and military families around the world. After the mega success of All the Right Reasons, Nickelback was well on their way to becoming one of the most overexposed bands of their time. The album would be their commercial high-water mark, but they had some platinum albums after that. In all, the band would place over 30 top 40 singles on the US rock charts, one of the biggest bands on the rock charts ever. But the bigger they got, the bigger the target got on their backs. As far back as 2003, a Nickelback backlash started. Now, a lot of you may be wondering where the hate, the national hate, the international hate, whatever you want to call it, for Nickelback started. Well, I'm going to tell you. Actually, comedian Brian Posen appeared in a Comedy Central ad making a joke at Nickelback's expense. Said Brian, no one talks about the studies that show that bad music makes people violent, like how Nickelback makes me want to kill Nickelback.
Like Nickelback makes me want to kill Nickelback.
Comedy Central aired the promo dozens of times a day for months, and then there was the snowball effect that led to an avalanche of memes, all taking shots at the band. Before you knew it, there was almost a universal consensus that Nickelback was the worst band ever. But now, years later, I gotta ask, is it finally okay to like Nickelback? Again, if you liked him before? Hey, Deadpool likes him.
I've had it with all this Nickelback hating, right?
This is how you remind.
Whatever you think of the band, though, good, bad, or ugly, I'll put it out there here. Far and away is a pretty good track. It's sappy, but in its day, it meant a lot to a lot of people. And, you know, it still does. All right, so as we go into number 6, I'm going to change it up a little bit. I just gave you 4 straight kind of guilty pleasure type songs, even though I don't really believe in guilty pleasures. But now I'm going to give you some that nobody's ashamed to love. These are phenomenal songs, and they've been great. And then my number 1 pick is one that sits right on the line. It's a song I've hated forever. We'll get there. All right, so at number 6, I got Barry White with Can't Get Enough of Your Love, Babe.
Can't get enough of your love, babe.
In his autobiography, Love Unlimited, Barry tells us that he grew up in a small home with his mother and siblings, and that his voice was originally kind of squeaky and high. However, at the age of 14, his voice literally deepened overnight. He was both horrified and intrigued. Said Barry, "It scared me and my mother when I spoke that morning. It was just totally unexpected. My chest rattled. I mean, vibrations. My mother was just staring at me, and I was staring at her. The next thing I knew, her straight face broke into a beautiful smile, and she said, 'My son's a man now.'" So for the next month or so, all of his friends wanted him to say different phrases. They were really entertained by his voice. It's kind of like that guy who does the Honest Trailer voiceovers.
From the twisted mind of Stephen King, pseudonym.
Growing up, Barry and his brother, they got tangled up with local gangs and got in some trouble. Barry has called himself a street cat and an ex-gangster, his words. He said, and I quote, "I understand the disappointment, the anger that people have. I had the same thing." Now, as a teen, Barry spent time in jail for stealing tires, but ultimately he left a life of crime for music. Explaining his musical philosophy, he said, and I quote, "Everyone to me has to pick a subject to talk about in music if you're going to be a writer. Mine is love, because I know when a man's making love, the last thing he thinks about is war." I love that quote. In 1966, Barry White became head of A&R for Mustang Bronco Records, where he wrote, produced, and recorded as a solo vocalist. While there, he met 3 female singers, Diane Taylor, Linda James, and his future wife, Glodine James. In 1973, White signed with 20th Century Fox Records. In 1974, he married Glodine James and released his 3rd studio album featuring Can't Get Enough of Your Love, Babe.
Some things I can't get used to, no matter how I try.
Now, Barry felt a deep connection to Glodine, calling her a woman he could relate to on every level. He wanted to write her a song that came from the deepest and most sincere part of himself. Explaining how it came together, Barry said, "My feelings for Glodine were so different from anything I'd known before. This was no ghetto romance. One night in 1974, after we'd been together a while, I got up while she slept, and I went into the kitchen and I started writing the song that would become one of my signatures, Can't Get Enough of Your Love, Babe, my musical tribute to Glodine." He would go on to say, "Although in time everyone would know the song, these words for now, I wanted it to be only for Glodine. It was a private love letter, something to keep between us until I knew how to properly and respectfully present our private love song to the entire world." Can't Get Enough of Your Love, Babe was released in June of '74, and it went to number 1 on both the Hot 100 and the Billboard Hot Soul Singles charts.
Can't get enough of your love, babe.
All right, coming in at number 5 of the countdown, I Got Something to Talk About by Bonnie Raitt.
People are talking about people.
Something to Talk About was written by the Canadian singer-songwriter Shirley Ikard. Shirley would have multiple hits in Canada. However, most of her success came as a songwriter, with songs recorded by Cher, Alana Miles, Rita Coolidge, and Anne Murray. Ikard wrote the blues rock hit Something to Talk About in Nashville in the 80s. She did it in reportedly about 20 minutes time while sitting on the kitchen floor.
Let's give them something to talk about. Let's give them something.
Shirley pitched it to Anne Murray and to other artists. All of them expressed interest, but ultimately it did not get recorded. According to Anne Murray, she wanted to record the song clear back in '86, but her producers didn't think it was hit material. So she just had to pass on it. But she did call her 1986 album Something to Talk About, so there might have been some influence there. But listen to this amazing story. Bonnie Raitt received a demo from Shirley back in the 80s, but she never pursued it. Now fast forward 7 years to the early 90s. One day Shirley came home to a surprise message on her answering machine. It was a message from Bonnie Raitt with a recording of Raitt's version of Something to Talk About. Apparently, she rediscovered Ikard's old demo tape in a box. She loved the song. 7 years later, decided to record it all of a sudden. Said, Shirley, I got home and there was a thing on my machine and it was Bonnie and I just went numb. But get this, the version we hear on the radio, it was almost scrapped altogether. During the recording of the Luck of the Draw LP, Bonnie Raitt was notoriously self-critical. She believed the song was too stiff and lacked the grease of her live sound. Her producer, Don Was, had to convince her to keep it, and it's a good thing that he convinced her. Something to Talk About was a massive success. The single climbed to number 5 on both the Hot 100 and the USAC chart. For Bonnie Raitt, it was by far her biggest chart hit in the US, and it won her a Grammy for Best Female Pop Vocal Performance. All right, heading into the number 4 spot, I've got a great one. Let's Get It On by Marvin Gaye. Originally written by 1950s one-hit wonder Ed Townsend, who had scored with For Your Love back in 1958. The first version of Let's Get It On, that was about Townsend's desire to get on with his life after beating alcoholism. Townsend brought the song to Marvin Gaye when the two were working together on what would become Marvin's Let's Get It On album. The years leading up to the single's release in June of '73 were turbulent for Marvin Gaye, though. After the massive success of his 1971 album, The Game Changer, What's Going On, the singer scored a new contract promising him more money and complete creative control. However, Marvin Gaye's marriage to Anna Gordy, the sister to Motown label head Berry Gordy, was coming apart at the seams. And the couple separated in 1973 following allegations of abuse and cheating from both parties. Now, despite the personal chaos, his life was falling apart. Marvin Gaye was truly drawn to Townsend's soulful song. Of course, Marvin Gaye took it in a completely different direction. Said Townsend about it, Marvin could sing the most religious song in the world and it would still have sexual overtones. But even so, Marvin Gaye's demo version of the tune was more about brotherly love than romance. But you know, when Marvin Gaye went to lay down the master vocals for the track, his delivery completely changed. And this is because of who was watching the session. During the recording session, one of Townsend's friends, Barbara Hunter, arrived with her daughter, who was still a few weeks shy of her 18th birthday. Her name was Janice. Yeah, and despite the age difference, Marvin Gaye was in his early 30s at the time, there was an immediate spark between the two. Gaye recorded the lead vocal while staring at Janice through the studio glass, and he reportedly finished the iconic vocal in one take. That's all it took. Let's Get It On, of course, became one of Marvin Gaye's most popular songs, became a baby-making standard, going platinum in the States. And actually, Marvin Gaye and Janice later married in 1977, and they had 2 children together, Nona and Frankie. However, the couple divorced 4 years later in 1981. And of course, tragically, in the early afternoon hours of April 1st, 1984, Marvin Gaye intervened in a fight between his parents at the family house in Los Angeles. And he became involved in a physical altercation with his father, Marvin Gaye Sr., who then shot his son twice. Marvin Gaye was pronounced dead after his body arrived at California Hospital Medical Center. He was only 44.
Give me all your love, please, baby.
All right, coming in at number 3, we have one of the greatest songs ever. Peter Gabriel, Within Your Eyes.
I get some love.
Written by Peter for his 1986 Juggernaut LP So, In Your Eyes was of course inspired by the one and only Rosanna Arquette, also Rosanna by Toto. And as every Gen Xer knows, the song's biggest claim to fame is how it was used in the 1989 film Say Anything. And one of the most iconic scenes in cinema history, John Cusack's character Lloyd Dobler, one of the best guys in the world, holds a boombox over his head and blasts the song into the night. Of course, in a desperate and defiant act of love for the girl who holds his heart, Diane Cord. The scene is a callback to an intimate moment the couple shared earlier in the movie and a reminder to her. Of course, everyone knows the movie, everyone knows the song, everyone knows the scene, but there are a few things that I bet you don't know. Some new stuff here. Over time, the boombox scene was spun into pop culture gold, of course, but there were several hurdles that almost prevented this scene from ever happening. So director Cameron Crowe initially wanted to use Billy Idol's To Be a Lover, but in his words, he knew it was hideously wrong. It was the wrong choice. And it's funny, Billy Idol was supposed to sing Don't You Forget About Me, and then he's supposed to have this song. Then there was John Cusack, who hated the scene, and he said to Cameron Crowe, "Why does Lloyd have to be a wuss like that?" Cameron relented, and he tried the scene with Lloyd in his car with just the boombox sitting on top of the car, but it didn't work at all. Now, as the sun set on the scene's final day of filming, Cameron Crowe convinced John Cusack to try it his way just one more time. John Cusack agreed, but he was straight up pissed about it. But as it turns out, John's defiant vibe was exactly what the scene needed. You watch the scene again, you can see he's pissed. Said Crowe, so he's holding up the boombox, literally kind of pissed that he's having to do it another time. And you knew it watching the monitor. That was the perfect emotion for this scene.
In your eyes, the light, the heat.
But there were yet still more obstacles. For example, John Cusack was a fan of the band Fishbone at the time. Do you remember them? He convinced Cameron Crowe to use one of their songs for that scene, but it wasn't romantic, right? As Cameron explained, and I quote, he's like, "Hey girl, I love Fishbone, and I'm not gonna let you sleep." Now later, as Cameron Crowe was out driving, he heard In Your Eyes on a mixtape from his wedding with Heart's Nancy Wilson. He immediately got chills.
And all my instincts, they return.
That was the song. He reached out to Peter Gabriel about it. But when Peter watched the movie, he just wasn't feeling it. He told Cameron he didn't think the song was right for an overdose movie. He's like, what? I guess another studio had reached out to Peter Gabriel requesting the same song, a John Belushi biopic called Wired, and Gabriel mixed up the movies. But, after Cameron Crowe cleared things up, he was free to use In Your Eyes, and as time passed, the boombox scene became rom-com legend. It's been used in everything, right? From memes to Modern Family to, you name it. Family Guy. It was so overexposed, it got a little weird for John Cusack and even Peter Gabriel. He said, I've talked to John Cusack about that. We're sort of trapped together in a minuscule moment of contemporary culture. But oversaturated or not, the whole thing was kismet. It was meant to be for sure. In Your Eyes and Say Anything is one of the best pairings in pop culture history. All right, the lovable number 2 spot, I've got my favorite. The Piano Man, Billy Joel, with Just the Way You Are.
I take you just the way you are.
Now, in 2006, Joel explained that the song came to him in a dream. He said, I dreamt the melody, not the words. I remember waking up in the middle of the night and going, this is a great idea for a song. A couple weeks later, I'm in a business meeting and the dream reoccurs to me right at the moment because my mind had just drifted off. And I said, I gotta go. And I went home and I ended up writing it all in one sitting. It took like a couple of hours to write the lyrics.
Don't go changing to try and please me.
Now, Billy Joel wrote this song about his first wife, Elizabeth, and he made it a birthday present for her. However, when he played the song for her, her first response wasn't exactly what he was expecting, not exactly a tearful thank you. Rather, Elizabeth, who was Billy's manager at the time, asked, do I get the publishing too? Yeah, she wanted the legal rights to the royalties as part of the gift.
Don't imagine you're too familiar.
Billy Joel's biographers have pointed out this moment as the beginning of the end of the marriage. Well, Billy Joel wanted his wife just the way she was. I guess that's exactly what he got. But according to Billy Joel, every single time, and I mean every single time, he wrote a song for a person that he was in a relationship with, it wouldn't last. He would say that it would end if he wrote a song for his wife. Was he cursed? Well, he might have been. He actually wrote this song, And She's Always a Woman, amongst others, for Elizabeth, wife number 1. Then he did This Is the Time and Leave a Tender Moment Alone, amongst other songs, for Christy Brinkley, wife number 2. And then he quit writing pop music for decades until he came out of retirement to write a song for wife number 3, Katie Lee, called All My Life. Boom. 3 wives, multiple songs, 3 divorces. Billy, whatever you do, don't write a song for your current wife. But in terms of Just the Way You Are, Joel's initial excitement for the song, it didn't last. In fact, he called it a gloppy ballad. He thought it would only get played at weddings. Said Joel, we almost didn't put it on the album. We were sitting around listening to it going, nah, that's a chick song. Billy credits his producer, Phil Ramone, with convincing him that it was a great song. Actually, Phil Ramone brought in Linda Ronstadt and Phoebe Snow into the studio. They listened to it, they heard it, and they're like, you have to put this on the record. They loved it. And that was enough to sell Billy on it.
No, I never want to work.
But his drummer at the time, Liberty DeVito, was not convinced. Joel recalled that they originally played as a cha-cha, and Liberty got so angry, he threw his drumsticks at Billy and said, I'm no damn sissy drummer, man. When Phil Ramone suggested a South American rhythm with a more sensuous feel, DeVito finally got on board. Just the Way You Are went to number 3 on the Hot 100, and it went to number 1 on the Adult Contemporary chart. And it became such a standard that Frank Sinatra himself even covered it.
I'll take you any way you are.
All right, we're here. The number 1 song, the one song that I hate to love, and I've honestly hated this song for the longest time since I was a kid, even though it's from one of my favorite bands. I actually hated it until a TV show won me over that played it. I'm talking about Open Arms by Journey.
Lying beside you, yeah.
Although it landed on their 7th studio album, Escape, keyboardist Jonathan Cain had started writing Open Arms before he joined Journey. This was while he was still a member of the Babies. However, according to Jonathan Cain, Babies vocalist John Waite rejected it, calling it sentimental rubbish. That's what Jonathan Cain says. Jonathan later finished the song with Steve Perry during the Escape sessions. But there was a battle over whether to include it on the album at all. Now, this is because guitarist Neil Schon initially loathed it. He absolutely hated it. In fact, drummer Steve Smith remembered Neil saying it sounds kind of like Mary Poppins. Actually, let's go to that little clip where Neil tells me about it.
That song, it came in and we played it and we did the arrangement that John had. And there was really like no guitar. And I'm like, well, why am I doing this? You know? So it was a turning point, you know? And frankly, I didn't hear the song. I didn't get it. And I didn't want to play it live, you know? Yeah. Perry loves the story. He loves to tell this story because that was wrong. And so the joke goes like after that, like, okay, so that's our first number 1 single, right? I believe so. The joke went after that. Whatever song Neil doesn't like, that'll be our hit single. So, you know, but I remember we were out on tour and we were like, you know, sold out everywhere, an Escape tour. And we never played the song live. And Steve goes, I want to play that song tonight. And John, they both wanted to play it because they both, you know, wrote it or John wrote it with him. And I was, really? Where are we going to put that thing? You know? And so we stuck it in the set and the place came unglued. I thought it was really not going to go down well with our audience because it was so different than anything we'd ever done before. And they loved it. And so I was just like, wow, okay. Yeah. What was I going to say? Yeah. The place came unglued. I was like, that's awesome. I was wrong. What do you want me to say?
So Steve Perry said the song's recording sessions were an ordeal because Neil Schon was taunting Perry and Cain in the studio. But Neil would ultimately come around, as you saw in the clip. When Journey performed it in concert for the first time in the fall of '81, the audience went nuts. And Neil was blown away by that response. And when the band left the stage, he said, man, that song really kicks some ass. This seriously annoyed Steve Perry at the time. He recalled, looking at him and saying, I wanted to kill him. Open Arms became one of Journey's biggest U.S. singles, actually their biggest chart single. It went all the way to number 2 on the Hot 100, and its legendary status has only grown since then. Said Steve Perry about it, I can't tell you how many times I get a tap on the shoulder and somebody says, this was my prom song. Well, like I said, growing up, something about Open Arms, it just did me in. It rubbed me the wrong way. I hated it. I loathed it. I love power ballads. Everybody loves a good power ballad. Journey is one of the greatest bands of their time and one of my favorites. I could just never get through the song. It was always an automatic skip for me on the greatest hits or whatever album I was listening to. But decades later, it changed. It was because it was used in the famous scene from season 3 of Cobra Kai with Johnny and Allie reminiscing. And that scene made me hear the song in a whole new way, and I was able to understand why it became Journey's biggest chart hit. Here's a part of that scene. Well, there you have it. 10 songs we hate to love. Probably 6 that are standards that we don't hate to love. But I threw, actually half of them. I threw 5 in there that, usually get listed as cheeseball. What do you think, though? What are your 5 and 5? What are 5 that you love, 5 that you hate to love? Let's have a great discussion below. If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe. We'd love to have you as part of our community. Till next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.